There is a horse standing in a field. It is completely still. It is not sleeping. It is not resting. It is listening. Its ear has just rotated towards something in the distance. Its nostrils are reading the air. Its eyes are tracking movement that you cannot see from where you are standing. And in the space of about 4 seconds, that horse has processed more information about its environment than most humans process in an hour. We have lived alongside horses for 6,000 years. We have ridden them. I worked with them, raced them, painted them, written poems about them, named our children after them. And in 6,000 years of living beside this animal, most of us still have no idea what it is actually saying. That changes today, because what science has recently discovered about horse communication is not what most people expect. It is not simple. It is not instinct, and it is not random. It is a language, one that horses have been speaking to us and to each other for longer than recorded history. And the moment you learn even a small part of it, you will never look at a horse the same way again. We are going to cover 5 behaviors today, 5 signals that every single person who spends time around horses should understand. Some of these signals can help you prevent accidents before they happen. Some of them will change the way you build trust with a horse. And one of them, minus the one we cover last, is so commonly misunderstood that even experienced horse owners get it wrong every single day. Stay until the end, because that last one matters more than most people realize. The first behavior is also the most important. And I want you to look at this image carefully. Those ears are not simply turned backward. They are not rotated toward a sound behind the horse. They are pinned, flat against the neck, tight, deliberate. And what that horse is doing right now is communicating something very clearly. Something is wrong. Here is what most people do not understand about horses. Horses are not naturally aggressive animals. They are prey animals. Their instinct is to avoid conflict, not create it. In the wild, unnecessary conflict wastes energy and creates risk. So before a horse ever does something that gets a human's attention, before the bite, before the kick, before the spin away, it almost always communicates first. The pinned ears are that communication. They are the horse saying, "Something is not right here. I need this to stop. I am telling you before I have to show you." I watched this happen once, with a horse being tacked up for a ride. The handler was moving quickly, distracted, thinking about something else. The horse's ears went back the moment the saddle was placed. Not dramatically, just back. The handler didn't notice, kept tightening the girth. The ears went flatter, still nothing. And then the horse bit the cross-tie rail so hard, it left a mark. Not the handler, the rail. Because even in that moment, the horse was choosing restraint, but it had run out of ways to say what it had been saying for 3 minutes. The ears were the first chapter. Nobody read it. Now here is where science becomes important. A 2019 study published in the journal PLOS One examined the facial expressions of horses in pain versus horses in neutral situations. Researchers found that ear position was one of the most reliable early indicators of physical discomfort, often appearing before any other visible sign, which means this: when a horse pins its ears during grooming or saddling, the correct question is not, "Why is this horse being difficult?" The correct question is, "Where does this horse hurt?" The ears are not an attitude. They are a diagnostic tool, and learning to read them correctly is one of the most important things anyone who works with horses can do. Now, I want to show you the complete opposite. If pinned ears are a horse reaching the limit of its patience, what you are looking at now is a horse that has found something rare: safety. Look at the head position. It is low, not grazing, not reaching for something, just low, hanging released. The eyes are soft to blink when it comes, is slow, deliberate, almost sleepy. The lower lip is slightly loose. To someone walking past this horse, it probably looks like nothing at all. But to anyone who understands what they are seeing, this moment is extraordinary. Let me explain what is actually happening here. Horses are prey animals. They evolved alongside predators for millions of years. Their survival depended on staying alert, on keeping the head up where the eyes could see the horizon, on keeping the muscles ready, on never fully, completely letting go. That instinct is not gone in modern horses. It is still there, still active, still running in the background, every hour of every day. So when a horse lets that go, minus when the head drops, and the eyes soften, and the muscles release, minus that horse is doing something that goes against millions of years of survival programming. It is choosing to feel safe around you. Science has measured this moment. Research from the University of Rennes in France studied cortisol levels, minus the hormone most associated with stress, minus in horses during interactions with familiar and unfamiliar humans. The findings were clear. When horses were around humans they trusted, cortisol levels dropped measurably. Heart rate slowed. Muscle tension reduced. The body was not pretending to be calm. The body was actually calm. In scientific terms, the horse's nervous system had shifted from sympathetic activation, minus the fight or flight state, minus the parasympathetic activation. Rest and digest. Safety. That slow blink you are watching is not a quirk. It is a nervous system state, and it is one of the most honest things a horse can show you. I once spent 3 weeks working with a mare who had been through a difficult year. New yard, new people, new routine. She was not aggressive. She was simply minus absent, present, in Dao-ho. The body but checked out somewhere behind the eyes. For 2 weeks I did nothing except show up. Same time, same energy, no demands, no agenda. On the 14th day, she lowered her head while I was standing next to her. Not all the way, just a few inches, and she blinked slowly. It lasted maybe 4 seconds. Then she went back to watching the yard. But those 4 seconds felt like something significant had shifted. Not because she suddenly became a different horse, but because at that moment, she was actually there, present, safe. Choosing to be, if a horse does this in your presence, understand what you have been given. You have been trusted by an animal that does not trust easily, and that means something. The tail is one of the most expressive parts of a horse, and one of the most misread, because not all tail movement is the same, and the difference between them is not subtle. Once you know what to look for. Watch the first clip, slow, lazy, side to side, rhythmic. That horse is not communicating distress. It is dealing with flies on a warm afternoon. The tail is doing a job, nothing more. Now watch this one, sharp, fast, repeated. That is a completely different conversation. That horse is not dealing with flies. That tail is telling you that something in this moment is creating tension, irritation, discomfort, something the horse has not found another way to say yet. And here is the critical thing about tail signals. They almost always come before the behavior that gets humans' attention. The tail starts talking long before the horse stops moving forward. Long before the horse refuses a request. Long before the situation escalates into something that frightens everyone involved. A 2020 study in the journal, Applied Animal Behavior Science, examined tail position and movement as indicators of stress in domestic horses. Researchers found that tail carriage and movement frequency correlated significantly with other known stress indicators, minus including cortisol levels and heart rate variability. In other words, the tail is not just behavior. It is biology. The body expresses what the mind is experiencing. I have seen horses whose saddles did not fit correctly show sharp tail movement. Every single time the saddle was placed minus weeks before anyone acknowledged that something might be wrong. I have seen horses in groundwork snap their tails at specific requests. Not because they were being stubborn, but because something about that particular movement created pain. The tail was trying to say what the horse had no other way to say. Think of it this way. If someone you trusted kept doing something that hurt you, and you could not speak their language, you would find a way to signal it. That signal might be small at first, a flinch, a step away, a change in expression. The horse's tail is that signal. Learn to read it before it has to become something louder. There is a sound that people who love horses talk about with something close to reverence. Not the whinny, not the neighbor, the nicker, low, soft, almost private, like the horse is speaking specifically to you and not to the rest of the world. And if you have heard it, minus if you have walked toward a paddock and had a horse lift its head, look directly at you, and make that sound, minus you already know what I am talking about. It is one of the best sounds in the world now. Some people will say, that's just because the horse knows feeding time is coming. And sometimes, yes, horses are intelligent animals and they learn routines quickly. But that explanation does not cover everything. Because horses nicker at people when there is no food involved. They nicker at horses they have not seen in months. They nicker at humans they have bonded with across a busy yard, when those humans are not even coming toward them. Research published in the journal Animal Cognition demonstrated that horses form long-term individual recognition of both humans and other horses, minus, and show measurably different responses to familiar versus unfamiliar individuals, even after separations of months or years. The nicker is not a reflex. It is recognition. It is the horse saying, I know you. I am glad you are here. There are different kinds of nickers, and each one carries a different meaning. The greeting nicker you just heard is the most common, but a mare's nicker to her foal is something entirely different. Softer, more continuous, almost below the level of sound, minus more vibration than voice. It is one of the most tender communications in the natural world. A constant reassurance. I am here. You are safe. I am here. And then there is the stallion's nicker toward a mare minus, which carries an entirely different energy. More insistent, more expressive. You will know the difference immediately when you hear both. The same vocalization, three completely different conversations, which is the reminder that understanding horses is never about memorizing one signal. It is always about reading the whole picture, the sound, the context, the relationship, the moment. And when you get good at that, minus when you start hearing the nicker, and understanding what kind it is, minus you realize that horses have been having very specific conversations all along. You were just not fluent yet. This is the behavior that causes the most problems between horses and humans. Not because the horse is being difficult, but because humans almost always respond to it in the worst possible way. Look at what is happening in this footage. The head has come up, fast. The ears are locked forward, like two satellite dishes aimed at the same point. The nostrils are wide open, reading the air. Every muscle in this horse's body is completely still. This is the high head stare. And what is happening inside this horse right now is one of the most sophisticated threat assessment processes in the animal kingdom. Remember, horses evolved as prey animals. For millions of years, their survival depended on one thing above everything else. Not being wrong about danger. A horse that dismissed a threat that was real did not survive. So the horse brain developed a threat detection system that is extraordinarily sensitive, tuned to movement at the edge of vision, to sounds below the human hearing threshold, to smells carried on a wind shift that we never even noticed. When a horse goes into this stare, it is not overreacting. It is doing exactly what millions of years of evolution built it to do. It is asking one question. Is this dangerous? And the answer to that question determines everything that happens. Next, here is where humans make the mistake. The horse freezes, the human tenses, the horse feels the human tense. And now the horse has received the most powerful piece of information it could possibly receive. The human is worried too, which means the threat is real. which means the situation has just gone from uncertain to dangerous in the horse's mind, without anything in the environment actually changing. Research from the University of Gothenburg studied how horses respond to human heart rate and cortisol levels. They found that horses showed measurably increased stress responses when the humans handling them were experiencing elevated anxiety, minus even when those humans were trying to appear calm. The horse was not reading the human's face. It was reading the human body, the microtension in the muscles, the slight change in breathing, the barely perceptible tightening of the hand on the lead rope. You cannot fake calm to a horse. You have to actually be calm. The best riders I have ever watched handle this moment the same way. They breathe deliberately. They soften everything they can soften. They let the horse look, and they stay present without adding their own fear to the situation. They are essentially saying to the horse, I see it too. I am not running, which means you do not need to run either. That is not dominance. That is communication. In the horse's language, delivered through a calm body and steady breath. And now the bonus. The one behavior that almost everyone gets wrong every day, including people who have been around horses for decades. The yawn. I know. It looks funny. It is one of those horse moments that makes people laugh every single time, and the assumption is always the same. The horse must be tired. It is a completely understandable assumption, because that is what yawning means for us. But horses do not follow human rules. Watch when this yawn happens. Not at the end of a long sleep. Not when the horse is standing quietly in a pasture. It happens after work, after the tense moment, after concentrating, after the thing that required mental or emotional effort. Research into equine behavior, published in the journal Behavioral Processes, found that horses yawn significantly more frequently following stressful or demanding situations compared to baseline resting condition. The yawn is not tiredness. The yawn is released. It is the horse's nervous system exhaling, letting go of something it had been holding, coming back down from a state of elevated focus or stress. Think about how you feel after something mentally demanding, after a long, difficult meeting, after an exam, after a conversation that required everything you had. There is often a moment afterward where you just release, a sigh, a long exhale, your shoulders drop, something lets go. That is what you are watching when a horse yawns after work. The body finds its way back to baseline. The nervous system returns to rest. If your horse yawns after a session with you, that is not a sign they found you boring. That is a sign they were present enough for something to release. That is actually a good sign. One note worth adding. Occasional yawning after work is completely normal, but a horse that yawns frequently throughout the day, without obvious stress or work to trigger it, may be showing signs of gastric discomfort or ulcers. Context is always everything with horses. 1 yawn after training is a release. 10 yawns throughout a quiet afternoon is a conversation worth having with your vet. We started today with a horse standing in a field, standing still, reading the world. And I told you that in 4 seconds, that horse had processed more information about its environment than most humans process in an hour. Now, I want to add something to that. In those same 4 seconds, that horse was also saying something about what it was feeling, about what it needed, about the state of its body and mind, and its relationship to everything around it. And the only question that has ever mattered is whether the humans nearby were listening. The horses that have the best lives, minus the ones that are calm, willing, trusting. Connected minus they almost always have humans around them who learn to listen, not to control, not to dominate, not to impose, to listen. That is the real skill, and it is available to anyone who is willing to slow down enough to learn it. If one of these behaviors changed how you see your horse, tell me which one in the comments. I read every single one, and your questions shape what we cover next. Tomorrow we go somewhere very few horse channels ever take you. Science has discovered that horses have been communicating through a channel that humans literally cannot detect. Not body language, not sound. Something else entirely. Something that travels through the ground itself, and once you understand it, the way wild horses coordinate across distances that seem impossible suddenly makes perfect sense. Subscribe so you do not miss it, and share this video with one person who loves horses. They will thank you for it. We will see you tomorrow.